And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
25! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Get ready to link the stars! Oh wait, I'm not Gene Rayburn. You are looking live right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where we are set for another Starlink launch this evening. This is going to be the Starlink 6-19 mission. It's already been delayed a little bit as weather rolled through the Cape, but we are now targeting 10 p.m. Eastern Time for today's liftoff. As mentioned, I may not be Gene Rayburn, but I am Sawyer Rosenstein, will be your host for this evening, and as always, am joined by a fantastic team tonight, including actually someone from Europe staying up late for us. Alex, how's it going?
Hi everyone. Yeah, we're giving a bit of a break to Trevor and all of the other Americans. So I'm joining here. I think it's my first launch live stream in a while because I've been Starship stuff and everything, but launch live streams have been a bit of out of action for those. But hey, I'm back.
Well, it's good to have you back, that's for sure. And also back with us once again from the field is Max. How's it going, Max?
Hey, good evening, everybody. It is a very wet and soggy evening here at the Kennedy Space Center because we've had some pretty crummy weather throughout the afternoon, but weather seems to be trending in the right direction for a T0 at 10 o'clock this evening.
That is the hope, because if it doesn't go at 10, there's only one other opportunity at 10:15 p.m. tonight before we would have to recycle. So let's not hope for that. And we, of course, keep an eye and ear out on if we are go for fueling in just a few minutes. And I can't forget, speaking of Europeans helping pushing the buttons, pulling the levers tonight, tracking this booster is Ryan in the back. So shout out to Ryan there. For those who love our Ryan videos, he's absolutely fantastic on all the videos as someone who gets to edit his stuff, but we do like the way he says booster. Anyway, this launch is so special. Go ahead, chat, for those who know the American version. How special is it? It's so special that Alex is going to help us break down what to expect for this flight.
Yeah, so this is basically just another Starlink launch. As always, it's going to launch 22 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. They're targeting also pretty much as always these days. It's quite weird because usually they change these sort of target orbits that they deploy these satellites, and then the satellites themselves go up into their operational orbits and things like that using their thrusters. But either way, they're still targeting that 284 by 294 kilometer orbit at about 43 degrees inclination relative to the equator. And then the booster for this mission, as you can see on the ticker down below on the red part on your screen, it says it is B1069. It is flying for a 10th time. It had been pretty much been flown already 9 times already. So this is going to be its 10th time.
9 times?
9 times. See, there you go. You got the
I
reference.
Gotcha.
It previously supported missions such as CRS-24, and for those that remember that mission, for example, this booster came in a little bit of a lean after that mission. It landed successfully on the drone ship, but let's say that it didn't fare as well afterwards due to the weather. But yeah, missions such as CRS-24, Hotbird 13F, then OneWeb 15, SES-18 and SES-19, and then a bunch of astronomic missions, which, like Trevor, I'm not going to mention totally. Oh, well, and then you can find them also on Next Spaceflight, because that's also a good resource that you can use as well. But you can see things like, Starlink 423, 53, 56, 513, and 69, and then now it's going to do 619. So yeah, those are the 10 flights of this booster.
Yes,
now, I'm
Next
sure
Spaceflight is a great resource. I do just want to point out both the app and the website version.
So I was thinking we could now tackle, because we're talking about the mission, we can also tackle the usual question of the trajectory as well. If we can pull that out. It is also launching to the southeast, also as always for Starlink missions. So we're covering already here the usual things that we see for Starlink missions. But there's one special thing.
There's always something special, I'm telling
There's
you. That's why
always-
this one's different.
There's always something special. So if you remember a long time ago, it's actually a few weeks ago actually, Elon mentioned that they were gonna increase the cadence. Oh, there we go. We have even fancy graphics here
Ooh.
now. But yeah, I actually made I wrote the article for this mission because it is a special one. It's the last one of this third quarter of the year. Now we're going into the fourth quarter of the year next week, basically like in tomorrow for me. And so we're wrapping up that, and there's been a lot of missions going on in the third quarter of this year. There's been 20 Starlink missions, which is like bonkers in just 3 months.
That's just Starlink.
Just Starlink. There's been 4 customer missions, so in total 24. This will be the 25th in the third quarter of this year. But more importantly, there was sort of a comment from Elon earlier this month saying that they wanted to target 10 launches in a month. And guess what? This is the 10th launch of September for SpaceX. So this was sort of a target that they had earlier this month, and they have already sort of achieved it. If it launches today, obviously, let's not count things before they happen, but it will sort of happen if it actually occurs today, this launch.
Which we're hoping it does, and obviously one of the big factors when it comes to that is the weather. I know, Max, you said it's a little wet and squishy out there, but what is the weather looking like, first off? And second off, a question from Jacob asking, how's the humidity looking for some, I guess, sonic booms down the coast, even though this one is a drone ship landing?
For a majority of the day, primarily in the afternoon, weather was looking pretty bad. I think the weather forecast for the almost 7 o'clock window or attempt was around, I want to say 35 or 40% chance favorable, so not the best. And the KIC here and Merritt Island as well has gotten pretty pummeled by rain for a lot of the day too, because we are in the time of year where we get some pretty gnarly afternoon and late evening storms. So weather has been, for the most part, not the greatest, but I think we are approaching a nice break, and the cloud ceiling is starting to rise a little bit, which is nice. But in terms of answering your question for sonic booms, I don't think we're going to hear any sonic booms tonight, nor should anybody else on the eastern coast of Florida. If you were on the support ship or by the drone ship, you most definitely would, but that is hundreds of kilometers downrange, and you shouldn't be there in the first place. So, but you should absolutely, if the weather plays nice where you are, if you're on the East Coast, primarily around like Fort Lauderdale, like that area, you should 100% see it.
Exactly. Hopefully, though, the humidity will make the sound louder and even better. So.
Oh yes, because it has been very wet today. I forgot that part of the question. That's my bad. But it is very sticky out. So something tells me it's going to be quite a punchy sound when it comes to launch, and the VAB might be pretty well screaming again. So, but I guess there's only one way to find out.
Yep, and as you can see, there a light breeze from the flag at the NASA press site there, next to our radar. So again, thank you to Ryan for getting all of that for us on screen here. I do have a whole bunch of support here that I do want to acknowledge and thank, including people who were already giving support when it scrubbed yesterday. Nova Raptor, yesterday becoming a Red Team member. Wayne Harris, yesterday becoming a PadRat member. During the first portion of the attempt, Charles Denny becoming a PadRat member. Favis becoming a PadRat member, along with Andre Guillen. As for now... John Riley becoming a Capcom member. Thank you very much for that. Reminder, Capcom and above get access to the NASA Spaceflight Discord. And speaking of above, Santiago Gleisner, thank you for becoming a Launch Director member. Wow, talk about one of the higher tiers. Appreciate your support with that. You'll also get your name at the end of all the NSF lives. It's awesome. Wow, thank you. And this one, Anna, thank you very much, saying, let me start the pun credits early. I always appreciate the pun tokens, because again, for these Starlink launches, they do be hitting different, and tonight, for some reason, so do the jokes.
Ain't that the truth?
Musical Wolves here. Guesses on if it's a stubby nozzle? I think, Alex, we kind of know the answer to that, much to the dismay of some, is no.
Yeah. Hi, Max. Hi.
Hello.
No, it's not a stubby.
Hello, it's me, Stubby Nozzle Lover here.
Thankfully for everyone out here, we're going to conserve our eyes, and we're not going to see that stubby nozzle. So,
well, it's not like we would be able. It's not like we would see it from the ground anyway. So,
okay, whatever. But you still get the point.
I think honestly, the biggest disappointment is not getting the higher quality second stage cameras, if anything. But
that's also true. That's also very true.
That's just on a personal level here. And then the gifted memberships are on their way. Holy smokes, Apocalypse Cow! Thank you for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. And Rick, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Absolutely fantastics. Fantastic! I guess that means I have to direct the next question to Alex Physics. We'll do this one from Nova 1 here saying, can you remind us what the 6-19 in Starlink 6-19 means?
Ooh, boy, that's a long story there, but I can try to tackle that one.
Good luck. I'll start the timer.
Yeah. So SpaceX and nomenclatures do not go well together. And basically, this is sort of a way of naming which kind of group of launches these Starlink mission is. For the first number, we have had from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so we'll have 8, group 8 dash whatever, right? So we have that. 2, 3, 4 were all for the first generation constellation. 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all going to be group the second generation constellation. Group 6, those are Starlink V2 mini satellites being launched into the 43-degree inclination shell of the second generation constellation of a Starlink. Now the 19, what it means is the number of the mission. But be careful there, because it doesn't mean the order. And I'm sure now Sawyer is going to say, that shuttle was the same, that they had all of these missions jumbled up and all of these mumbo jumbos that they did back in the day. For example, Starlink 615 already launched a couple of months ago from Vandenberg. So that one, for example, if you look at the manifest, it already happened way back when, and you won't see that. And in fact, the next Starlink launch after this one for the Group 6 of missions is going to be Starlink Group 6-21, because 6-20 already happened as well about 2 months ago from Vandenberg. So there you go. These like orders don't really matter these days, because they just put them out when they put them out. But it's sort of like mission number, that last one after the group number.
I'll address the shuttle part in a second, but I do want to mention that SpaceX officially tweeting that less than 30 minutes until tonight's launch, teams are keeping an eye on weather conditions at the launch site. So we will continue to keep an eye on them as well. But going back to shuttle, I may be cheating a little bit because I have the pins of every single space shuttle mission in order in front of me. But I remember there was a part where it was like STS-123, 24, everything was normal, and then they just said, we're going totally out of order here. Next, STS-124, STS-126, STS-119, STS-125, STS-127. It's not NASA forgot to count. It's once it gets a number, it keeps that number until it launches, basically. All right, let's take another question here from chat. Again, appreciate those of you tagging us at NASASpaceflight. And here's a question from Jacob. And I'll put this one to you, Max. First off, have you seen a Starlink train with your own eyes in the night sky? And if so, what's the best way to see them?
I have. I think I've only seen 2 or 3 to this point, and the most recent 2 I've seen has actually been in the last couple of months as part of the Group 6 cluster. And the first one I thought, what a speech. The first one I saw was the Starlink mission actually after DM2 back in 2020. And at that time, I was living in Chicago, and actually I had just landed and gotten back to my house in the suburbs. And I saw it going right over my house just by a complete coincidence. I think from what I've found in terms of seeing them, flightclub.io by Declan Murphy, that is probably the most accurate and the most predictable method to try and find a train and spot some satellites. But to be honest with you, I haven't gone out to look for them myself a whole lot. But from my lack of knowledge on that subject, I would probably go with flightclub.io.
It's a great resource anyway for tracking launches, especially if you live near the Cape and want to know where to look, or if you're a photographer down there trying to figure out how to set up the camera location for the famous streak shots. That's the best source. That's what I use as well, and what most of the photographers use. It's a great resource.
Mhm.
Here's a question from Rokwa, and Alex, I'll put this one to you. I don't know if we know the exact answer to this, but why isn't the marine keep-out zone symmetrical along the axis of the launch trajectory? It has all these weird kind of hexagons and bumps, and rather than just a nice straight line. As you can see there, there's that big giant weird shape thing at the end. Any idea why, Alex?
Not sure why it is not symmetrical, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be symmetrical because the trajectory is going south. So you will see some kind of bias on the launch, on the hazard zones towards the south. Admittedly, it is not biased to the south. It's actually biased to the north. It seems like. So I don't really know, to be honest. That's kind of a mystery. I guess it is something that both SpaceX and the Coast Guard and all of these other bodies put together on their own, on their own accounts, based on the data that they have, which obviously we don't have, and they probably know much better than any one of us here, because they have all of this access to all of this information, which again we don't have. So yeah, but yeah, you can see there that path. We see, we have a few other people coming up here, kind of new. So now it is going to the southeast. See a few people in chat talking about it.
This is pure speculation. I'm going to preface that right now, that this is not a known fact. This is just speculation. I wonder if it has to do with the potential fairing recovery, since it's pretty well controlled, but it's basically just coming down on a parachute. So in case it goes slightly off course, or again, unless there's some issue with the booster debris field in the event of something going wrong, which obviously we don't want. But again, this is just pure speculation on my part, so don't take that as fact.
And there we go.
Here's
Look
a
at
good
that.
question. Oh yeah,
T-minus 20-minute vent is up and running.
There she
beautiful.
goes.
Which what's blowing there, Max?
So what you're seeing now is SpaceX purging the strong back fuel lines of the RP-1 or liquid oxygen in preparation to begin liquid oxygen loading of the second stage. That cloud is a byproduct of the super chilled fluid venting out of the strong back. Excuse me. And because of the really really thick air here in Florida, because it's so humid, that vapor has a lot of trouble condensing or excuse me, evaporating into the air. And so, of course, because it won't evaporate right away, we have this big, beautiful vent of condensation coming out of the strong back.
It's also interesting in this one, sometimes it kind of just hangs around the base of the rocket, but just to give you an idea of the weather as well, you can kind of see it actually blowing off to the side there, and a nice steady plume.
It's a great indicator, and on some nights where there's no wind, that cloud will fall right to the ground. But on nights like tonight, where there's a slight breeze coming out of the east, of course, it blows sideways and gives Falcon 9 a bit of a cape. So that's a great indicator of how thick the air is.
I like that, a falcon cape.
And I want to. I always like to point this out because I know a lot of people also follow Starship. I think probably a lot more, to be honest, than Falcon. But Falcon is my love. But you can see this kind of vent also for Starship as well. It is sort of the same kind of thing where they chill down the pipes that go up to either to the tower or up to the overall launch mount at Starbase. So you can see these long plumes coming out either from the tower or the launch pad itself from the launch mount. And so this is pretty much the same. They just chill down and purge that line ahead of loading liquid oxygen onto the second stage of Falcon 9.
Exactly, and I think, like we were talking about, it's a good indicator that the RP1, the rocket propellant 1, the refined form of kerosene, is done in the second stage, and you'll also know when that liquid oxygen begins filling on the second stage once that venting stops. So it's also a great indicator of where we are in the countdown as well. Here is another question. Alex, I think this is another perfect one for you. I believe that's XRTMRX. I apologize if I'm totally butchering it, but asking when will we start seeing daytime launches again? And I'm with that person. When?
Well, this was originally sort of planned to be during daylight. I believe the first T0 was around 6:39, which was delayed to 6:49. Then it went to basically where we are right now at 10 p.m. Eastern. But if you're gonna look for a daylight launch, don't wait for a Starlink launch because these Starlink launches are being set up precisely during the night. For things that are happening at the pad, which we may talk about here in just a second. But to answer the question, the next daytime launch from the Cape might be the Psyche launch. Well, at least for a Falcon 9 launch, an Atlas V launch is scheduled to lift off on October 6th, and it is going to be carrying the two Kuiper prototype satellites.
Sorry, did you just say Falcon 9?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a Falcon
9
Heavy.
times 9 times 9, you mean?
Okay. It's going to be a Falcon Heavy. But yeah, for Falcon, it's going to be October 12th with Psyche at about 10:16 a.m. Eastern, if I remember correctly. If you want something a little bit earlier, you have Atlas V on October 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern. But other than that, I don't really think there's going to be any other daylight launch from Falcon. So, yeah. And you can check that out on nextspaceflight.com.
We haven't actually had I think since the beginning of July, we've only had, I believe, 2 or 3 daytime launches. When you put that into comparison with the cadence since then as a whole, I believe it was the launch of the Euclid telescope back on July 1st, and then of course the most recent Atlas V flight as well, and those have been the only 2 daytime flights we've had since the beginning of July, which is crazy.
Yeah, following Euclid, it's only been 1.
Yes, exactly. And we love it. We love nighttime launches, but you can't really see that the rocket as a whole at night. You only you pretty much only see the exhaust. So I mean, while it is beautiful and the way it lights up the sky, it's nice to be able to see the whole body for go punching out through the atmosphere for once.
Max, talking about not seeing the rocket.
Hey,
we're seeing less of the rocket, right? Every single launch, we're seeing less of it. What's going on?
So, for those late to the party, SpaceX is currently in the process of constructing a brand new crew access tower over at Slick 40. From our last KSC flyover video, you would know that we saw 4 completed segments or near completed segments over at the Roberts Road facility at the Kennedy Space Center. And as we have observed, 3 of those 4 segments are currently in place at Slick 40. So in a matter of a month and a half, the view over to Slick 40 from our perspective here at the Kennedy Space Center has already changed considerably. The last segment should be rolling out here at some point soon. We don't know exactly when, but that is why the view over to Slick 40 in this case is changing so quickly. It's because there's a brand new tower going up there to fly crew.
Exactly. That'll open up a whole bunch of possibilities. And a reminder that the Dragon capsule that's used for crew is the same basic design as the one that's used for cargo, just one has seats, one doesn't, and also comes with a really cool freezer that can fit ice cream and fruit and all that kind of stuff in it. But it's the same access to load it, both with people and with cargo. So that allows for the CRS missions, in addition, to also potentially launch from Space Launch Complex 40. Which, as of now, by the way, the next CRS mission is currently scheduled for November 1st to the ISS, and that is from 39A still.
And it's also going to be a nighttime launch.
Of course it is.
I think it is around
Why
1
wouldn't it be?
Yeah, one of the things that is interesting is that I actually mentioned this on the article that I wrote, that they're having these sort of record-breaking turnaround times from Slick 40, even though they are building this new tower, and it is precisely because they are sort of scheduling these launches during the night when there's not going to be any construction work, right? This is not a Starbase, so there's no construction work during the night. And so they are already not going to have anything going on there, so they just schedule these launches during the night. It is also better weather during the night in Florida, famously.
Well,
I mean,
most of the time.
Depends on where you live.
Most of the
Depends on where you
time-
live.
most of the time, but let's be real. It's been worse today earlier, so
Oh goodness, yes.
yeah. So it's better. It's not good, but it's better during the night. So you have better chances to be able to lift off during the night. And between launches, they need to turn around the whole pad, right? They need to refurbish things here and there, replenish consumables at the tank farm, etc., etc. So in between, while they do that, they stack the tower and they do work on the tower and things like that. They are really planning this whole thing very smartly is the word, or very cleverly, whatever the word is, but really, really efficiently. Probably that's the better word for that.
It's been really just unique to see how they've managed to move, at least from a hardware standpoint, how quickly they've been able to actually construct the tower in this time frame and how fast they have. Because Slick 40, as it stands right now, is currently the busiest launch complex in the world. So the fact that they've been able to, at least from a hardware perspective, over actually at the pad, the fact that they've knocked up the segments as fast as they have is pretty remarkable.
It really is. It's been so quick, and you can see the progression from all of the Cape flyovers that we've done so far. And next week should be a good indicator as well of where we're at too, when hopefully the next flyover releases pending weather. So
yeah, because
definitely.
I was just gonna say we are sort of here team flyover. I don't fly, but I write the scripts, or at least partially the script for the flyovers. Max does fly and takes pictures, and Sawyer, you edit those videos. So we're here sort of like team flyover, I guess.
In addition to Max and I being on camera.
Yes. And actually the last time we flew, there were no segments in place, and that was just over a month ago, which is crazy.
No, they already had 4. So the first time that we actually saw segments was in July, and then by August they already had all the 4 segments completely built out and everything, and they started rolling them. So by the time we fly next, we might not see anything there because it's gonna be it's already stacked at the pad.
Right.
Yeah, all that at Roberts Road.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got some more support coming in. Apocalypse Cow, thank you very much for gifting 10 more Red Team memberships. And Telstar86 coming in, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. I hope you did not use a Telstar satellite to actually convey that message. Here's another one. Neil asking, and I'll put this one to you, Max, knowing your expertise of viewing these launches. Do you think we could see a full moon jellyfish?
From our perspective, probably not, because we actually cannot even see the moon tonight. There's actually still a pretty thick cloud layer over us right now. So from our perspective here, right in the heart of the Space Coast at the Kennedy Space Center, probably not. But if you are in an area where there is minimal clouds or no clouds, even better, looking out toward the east, you might, because there is a full moon that just rose not too long ago, and it is at full brightness right now. So there very well could be.
A couple more support messages. Benjamin Brown coming in and pointing something out with the flag. For those of you wondering why the flag is at half-mast, as you can see there, it is in honor of Senator Dianne Feinstein from California, who just recently passed away. So just wanted to acknowledge that. Let's try and keep it apolitical, but our sympathies to the families, and we hope that it rests in peace. And Bideford coming in here with a $50 super chat. Saying, thanks, Alex, for being up early in the morning to also host this launch with Sawyer and Max. And is Julia out with a camera too? We shall see. I know she's busy at the moment, but hopefully she can get a camera set up somewhere. If not, again, Max, I know you've got a really cool shot that you trekked out to set up.
Yes, in the time between the delay from the first T0 that was supposed to happen earlier this evening, our friend and I actually went on a trek out in northern Merritt Island to try and put a camera elsewhere to fire remotely to get hopefully a unique streak shot, which is a long exposure image, a single image of hopefully the entire arch. But these clouds don't look like they're playing too nice right now, so I guess we will have to wait and see how that comes out.
Exactly. That means you'll just have to make sure you follow Max on all the social channels to keep an eye out for it. We are coming up now in about T-minus 7.5 minutes, almost T-minus 7 minute mark. I know that has a significant milestone for the Merlin engines, Alex. So what do we have coming up in the count here?
Yeah, so around T-minus 7 minutes, the ground systems basically start the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines on the first stage. So the Merlin engines use liquid oxygen. It is very, very cold, and so before they run that liquid oxygen through the pumps at full pressure and full flow, what they do is they trickle a little bit of it from the tanks down to the pumps and sort of get it conditioned to that temperature. Because otherwise, if you just it is at room temperature, right, and then you just put all that liquid oxygen through at all the full flow and everything that it needs to go through, then you're gonna go through nasty stuff, and that means basically things like cavitation, and basically that oxygen will turn into a gas, and you have bubbles and things like that. You don't want that kind of stuff on your pumps, so they do that kind of stuff, and that is what it's called, the engine chill.
Yeah, the only bubble pump I want is the one that has those like little gun type things that sprays out bubbles. Like meant for 5-year-olds, but adults can have fun too. We've got even more support coming in here. James, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. MV asking, any reason why SpaceX doesn't live stream on YouTube anymore? They now stream on X, but don't worry, we are still here on NASA Spaceflight on YouTube to bring you as many of these launches as we possibly can. And part of that is thanks to people like Max, who's out there with the camera right now, which I'll let you get set up for launch at this point and send you on your way, and we will talk to you after.
That would appear to be the time of day now. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I will see you on the other side.
Just wanted to say, good luck. We're all counting on you.
Don't call me Shirley.
But I am serious. I
got that reference.
Yes. Here's an interesting question. Do you think SpaceX will try to develop a reusable second stage, aka no more bouncy houses? Or is the main focus now on Starship?
Yeah, for a second stage, it's not going to be Falcon 9. You got to look at Starship for that. It does not mean that Falcon 9 doesn't have a future. It actually is. It's gonna have a lot more future than people probably imagine. Elon was talking about increasing the cadence next year to 12 launches per month for Falcon 9. Like that's Falcon. It's not a Starship or anything. That's Falcon. So it's gonna launch a lot until it retires. So yeah, expect a lot of launches out of that. But definitely not gonna have a second stage reuse because it's gonna be it will be very prohibitive for them.
As we come up on T-minus 4 minutes, keep an eye out towards the right side of your screen. It's just to the left of the crew tower that's being built there at the TE, the Transporter Erector. It will probably be difficult to see, but it will start leaning back ever so slightly, a couple degrees away from the rocket. Then, once we hit T0, that will throw back out of the way completely, disconnecting a whole bunch of lines that are attached to Falcon 9, including ones for fuel, air conditioning and power for the payloads and the satellites on board, all of that to get it out of the way as it launches. Which, those things have to be refurbished after each of these launches, right?
Yeah.
Great answer. Now, coming up on under 3 minutes here, I know there's still a few more events to keep an eye on. What else are we still looking for now that we get into the final 3 minutes and 10 seconds of the count?
Yeah, so right now they are wrapping up liquid oxygen load on the first stage. Liquid oxygen load on the second stage is going to wrap up at about a minute after that. And then we're going to have a fully loaded Falcon 9. And you know how we saw, I just actually heard the call out for first stage liquid oxygen is complete. And you know how we saw the T-minus 20 minute vent. So a similar thing is going to happen once they wrap up liquid oxygen load on the second stage, because now, since they don't need to load any more of it, they can clean up the lines that go up to the second stage and be able to purge them ahead of liftoff. Because you don't want that thing to be loaded with liquid oxygen once the rocket passes by the transporter erector at liftoff. So that's going to be a thing that we're going to see in about 30 seconds or so, maybe 45 seconds. So stay tuned for that.
And that is also now about 1 minute away from when Falcon 9 enters startup. That is when the vehicle's onboard computers take control of the countdown. There is still a little bit of a window for a manual hold to be called. That is up until about T-minus 40 seconds or so, which is when the launch director will hopefully verify go for launch. Right, 40 around that time frame, basically.
40 seconds is for Starship.
Yes, 45. Thank you. Regardless, that's the main decision point. And again, as mentioned, SpaceX earlier, about 25 minutes ago, mentioned that they are still keeping an eye on weather conditions at the launch site.
You can see that vent.
There it is.
Underway.
And that is more of the nitrogen that is used in that purge, correct?
Yep. Obviously, some oxygen mixed up with that vapor as it cleans out all of that oxygen.
Exactly, right. As part of the whole point is purging the line to get rid of all of that excess or any remnant liquid oxygen in there. Coming up now on 1 minute. At this point, Falcon 9 should be in startup. As we mentioned, that is when the flight computers take control. That's also when all of the tanks on board Falcon 9 are pressurized to their flight pressure. All the venting that you see on screen still completely normal. At this point now, we are waiting for the official go for launch from the launch director.
And they are go for launch.
There we go. T-minus 30 seconds and counting. A reminder, we will stop talking during the liftoff, and it will be silent for a little bit. It does take time for the sound to get to where our microphones are at the press site due to the speed of sound. We are not muting it intentionally. As we come up on T-minus 10 seconds. T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9 on Starlink 6-19. Go, Internet Satellites V2. Go. At this point, Falcon 9 is approaching max Q, that is maximum aerodynamic pressure pushing down on the vehicle as it continues its climb. You'll hear that sound, absolutely stunning tonight with the higher humidity there. You can hear the VAB squealing, which we'll talk a little bit more about that once we get further into flight. And gorgeous shots through the clouds. So the next event that we're going to be keeping an eye out for should take place about a minute from now. That will be starting with MECO, main engine cutoff, when the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage shut down, followed by first and second stage separation, followed a few seconds later by SES1, that's second engine startup. That is when the Merlin vacuum engine will ignite on its first of 2 burns for the evening on its way to sending those 22 Starlink satellites into orbit. And so far, Alex, everything looking really good.
Indeed. It is pretty much going by the book.
That's what we want. And again, you can kind of see the engine plume expanding from the onboard camera there as it gets higher up into the atmosphere. The engines are not moving or anything. That is just because of the thinner atmosphere puts less compression on that sort of plume. So up next should be MECO coming any second. There we go. We have main engine cutoff. Next will be stage separation, followed on the right side of your screen by that Merlin vacuum engine igniting. And there we go. And there goes the stiffener ring, which, Alex, what does that ring do?
Yeah, so the stiffener ring, as its name mentions, it basically stiffens the end of the nozzle because it's very thin, it's very lightweight, and so you kind of want to keep it in place as you transport the rocket, you lift it off for the first stage, but once you are using the engine, it's okay to let it off.
And on your right side of the screen is fairing separation. That's the 2 halves that encapsulate and protect the satellites while they are in Earth's orbit. Obviously, once they enter space, those are no longer needed. And those will parachute back down for recovery to be flown again. And those will hopefully land a little over 670 kilometers downrange. You can also see the thin outline there of the grid fins. You saw them with the beautiful interactions with the atmosphere and its own plume as they were expanding out earlier. Those are not going to be used just yet. Those are used once we get into the thicker parts of the atmosphere, basically during the landing burn to help steer. Now, while we wait for the next burn, which will be the entry burn, I do want to point out, for those of you that heard that weird noise during liftoff, besides the insanely loud crackle because of how loud all of that was, we like to call that here the VAB squeal. That is a vibration from the Merlin 1D engines that happens to match the panels on the vehicle assembly building. And when you get a launch from Slick 40 or a landing at LZs 1 and or 2, you get the perfect angle and the perfect resonancy that you get what sounds kind of like a squeal. I'm sure Max can talk a little bit more about that. Max, I think we have you back.
Indeed you do. And my goodness, that was probably the loudest launch I've ever heard from Slick 40, at least from this distance and this vantage point. That was absolutely absurd. And I think that was jointly because of just how thick the air is tonight, and also the clouds providing a lot of reverb for that acoustic energy to bounce off of it and hit us. And my word, while we didn't see it much, right? We saw it for like another second once it got somewhat above the clouds, but my word, was that incredibly loud.
Yeah, our cameras at the port there, as we like to call it, fleet cam, got a good view once it broke through that cloud. But that's probably the longest I've heard the audio in a long time as well here on stream.
Absolutely, and like you were saying, the VAB was squealing like crazy, and we all kind of figured it would, but that was absolutely the case tonight. And we heard a lot of reverb just around the buildings and structures, and even the trees and shrubbery next to us. There was so much energy bouncing around this area. We heard everything, almost everything was shaking and squealing tonight. It was incredible.
Wow. Now, at this point, we are just about 10 seconds away or so from the first of two more burns for the first stage. This is the entry burn. That's approximately 20 seconds or so. And how exactly does this one work, Alex?
Yeah, so the entry burn, you're going to see the center engine igniting first, and then you can see it igniting, and then two other engines are going to ignite, and then you can see it, 3 engines up and running for that entry burn. Fire against fire, right? That's what you call it?
Yep, fighting fire with fire. And that's also, I always like to point this out. I know I say it every time, but I still think it's really cool because we love the sooty boosters, right? A reminder that RP1 is a refined form of kerosene, which is carbon-based. So that is going to cause the soot that you see, and that is what accumulates on the outside of the booster as it flies through its own soot. And you can see a little bit of that remnant light there shining through those grid fins as it goes into the slightly thicker part of the atmosphere.
Yeah, that plasma as it re-enters and tries to steer to the drone ship with those grid fins. It's amazing when it happens.
And you see how quickly it's already slowing down. There is one more burn coming up shortly. That will be the landing burn. That will hopefully bring the vehicle down nice and slowly for a touchdown on the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas downrange. You can kind of see a little bit of it there, a little bit of the light through the clouds. And a reminder, that will happen before what you see on the screen there, SECO 1. That is second engine cutoff. That is when the Merlin vacuum will shut down and place the satellites into their initial parking orbit before one final orbital burn about 45 minutes from now. Meantime, the first stage now 3 kilometers off the deck of the drone ship. Just about 900 still on the speed there. There is the landing burn. Again, you'll see the grid fins start to wiggle as it helps steer. The first stage does use Starlink, so despite the signal there. Have the view from the drone ship on the right and a gorgeous view of touchdown. 1069 is nice once again.
And that makes it 11 boosters that have flown 10 times. So that mark, it's already 11 boosters.
That is unbelievable, and that should be SECO there, and just based off of the numbers that we were able to see, it looks like the data values are right where they should be for a good parking orbit, or initial orbital insertion. Now, take a look on the left. We have a fantastic replay here of the launch from that fleet cam, which you can watch on Space Coast Live 24/7. But take a look at this. As it broke through that first layer of clouds, you should be able to see it right in the middle of the screen there. It'll get a lot brighter. There it is. So it punches through that first cloud, which is what Max caught it going through, as well as our other tracking camera. Lit up the cloud absolutely beautifully. Almost looked like a lightning storm without the lightning flickering. And then poking right back out through the clouds, streaking upward. This is one of the coolest replays I think we've ever had on this channel, if I do say so myself.
I actually got a pretty good vertical video, somewhat zoomed out. And at the very bottom of the frame is Falcon 9 on the pad. And at the very top is the bottom of that cloud ceiling. And I got the whole video in one take of Falcon 9 ascending and punching right through that lower cloud layer. I'm so excited to go through it.
And that's the other thing, Max. What did that look like from your point on the ground? Because from what we saw from our cameras, the way it lit up the clouds was just absolutely gorgeous. One of the more beautiful cloud punch-through shots.
Oh, undoubtedly. And on top of being an aid for helping carry the sound over long distances, the clouds also act as a surface for light to bounce off of if they're thick enough and dense enough. And because the cloud ceiling was so low and so thick, it lit up the entire complex. I mean, that was probably the brightest and loudest flight from Slick 40 that I've seen from KSC. And, that's not something to be taken lightly. That was absolutely beautiful.
And you're at how many launches now?
Oh, goodness. I think this is 115. So I think, as you like to say, I'm flight proof to beat you to it.
Yep. But yeah, just in terms of, for reference of how sensational this actually is, as someone who's only at 46, it still just blows me away, even watching these on the stream. What also blows me away is the amazing support from our viewers as well. How to SpaceX saying, have you seen a spike in views since SpaceX stopped streaming? Love y'all. Thanks for doing great streams. We're just glad to have any audience here that loves what we do and supports us. And if you do, even if you can't support us monetarily, simple things like likes, sharing the video, the stuff you hear all the time, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell. It does legitimately make a difference in the YouTube algorithm, and we greatly appreciate it. Skylar, I guess, technically building a giant vape. An Apocalypse Cow gifting 10 more Red Team memberships. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. We have a countdown going on in our back channel in terms of launches. Ryan is at 1, Kevin is at 2. Do we have any other awesome numbers, Alex, from this launch?
Well, I just right now I have updated my spreadsheets, and I have a little thing going on my spreadsheet where I try to project the number of launches that they're gonna achieve if they continue the same trend. And I currently have, my prediction is 93, but we're expecting that to change because they're gonna be increasing that cadence more and more as they go each month, down the line. So you never know, they might hit 100 launches.
That was the goal, and next year's goal, I believe, is 144. So we shall see as we take one last look at the replay here. I want to give one big thank you to everybody who joined us here tonight on the stream, including you, Alex. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure, and yeah, as always, we'll be back again. When's the next launch? Oh my gosh.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, there's more. There's more launches always.
There's always more in the Space Coast.
Speaking of, thank you, Max, for joining us, and I will hopefully join you out in person for that next launch from the Cape, which is that Atlas V.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure having everybody along, and it's always a pleasure to be out here for you guys. So thank you.
I may be a little jealous. That's why I'll be back. I'll be back next to you next time.
I'll be back.
And hopefully soon we will get Ryan, who's been operating the stream tonight fantastically, pulling up all the crazy assets, the replays, the split screens, all of that amazing stuff. Hopefully we'll get him out here for the Psyche launch later this month, and we can all use our different accents and say booster. I say it with love, Ryan. Go show him some support as well. And thank you, of course, for joining us. I have been Sawyer Rosenstein, your host for this evening. Don't forget, you can keep up with everything going on the Space Coast. Space Coast Live 24/7. We also have 24/7 cameras down at Starbase and at McGregor where they test these boosters. Hopefully, you'll join us for that next stream. Until then, as Das likes to say, later, nerds.
And here we go.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Probably not. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FT off. Say again, FT off.
It's orange! 145! Oh my god!
Décollage. Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?